Hey adventurers, today is going to be another book review. This is for The Dragon Reborn by Robert Jordan. Of course, this is book 3 of, I have it right here. This is book 3 of the Wheel of Time, and we'll get into my thoughts in it momentarily here, but this is fantasy, an epic fantasy series. Not really exactly high fantasy, but kind of, not really because it's supposed to be technically future Earth. So yeah, we'll get into my thoughts here. So far, my experience with Wheel of Time is that it is enjoyable, but it isn't blowing me away. We'll see if this changes after book 3, specifically as I continue through the series, because everybody says that books 1, 2, and 3 are all very much the same and very much heavily influenced by Lord of the Rings, which I love Lord of the Rings. I haven't seen that so much with books 2 or 3, but I did notice it with book 1 quite a bit. But what they also say that book 1, 2, and 3 are all very formulaic, they're all very much the same as each other in many ways, and then book 4 is where it starts to branch off and become its own thing and become really good. And so I'm definitely going to continue on with the series and hope that it captures me in a way that it hasn't yet. But as of right now, it's not blowing me away. I'm enjoying it especially enough to continue, but it's not blowing me away. Book 3 was, in my opinion, a much better story than book 2. I did not feel nearly as bored with it, and it didn't nearly put me into a reading slump like book 2 did. I actually spent an entire month on both of them, but I spent an entire month on book 2, and it was because I didn't want to pick it up and continue reading, or I didn't care if I picked it up and continue reading. I wanted to know the story, but I didn't care if I read it. I wanted to be reading other things. There was other things that were interesting me more, and so it took me a long time to get through book 2, whereas even though it took me about the same amount of time to get through book 3, I did it felt like it was much faster, and I think what it had to do with that was the fact that I didn't have as much time to read book 3, but I wanted to be reading it. And so I had more time to read book 2 and didn't want to read it, but I didn't have time to read book 3 and did want to read it. And so it kind of, the amount of time I actually spent on reading, more of it was going into book 3 than book 2, and confusing, and I need to stop rambling because I'm being way long-winded in this batch film. So, where am I at in my outline? Yeah, so book 3 still took me a while to read, but it was more because I didn't have much time to sit and read, rather than me not particularly caring if I sat down and read it. There was a lot of great stuff in it, a lot of new world building and character introductions, as well as establishing of characters. We spend a lot of time with Matt in this book, definitely the most time of any of the books so far, and I really enjoyed seeing things from his perspective. There's a good bit of the book from Perrin's perspective as well, and that was good, but I found myself disliking Perrin a lot more in this book, even though I liked the stuff that was going on with him. He himself being in his mind was not working for me, or seeing things through his perspective and his thought process and everything wasn't working for me in this book like it was in book 1. In book 2, I found Egwene to be quite a bit less annoying than I found her in book 1, but it felt like her character backtracked some in book 3, and I was really getting rather annoyed with her most of the time as well. Nynaeve wasn't much different, but in relation to Egwene, she just seemed so much less annoying. We really didn't see enough of Lan or Moraine for me to have much of an opinion on them. There were other characters that we got to see more of and that were introduced that I really appreciated seeing. As I was reading, I really enjoyed the focus on Matt, but after a bit I found myself wishing there was more of Rand. And in fact, there is very, very little of Rand in this book. It's understandable when you know the story of the book and what's trying to be done with this specific book, but I do wish we could have seen more from his perspective, just a little bit, because it would have broken up the monotony of it a little bit. Really getting a chance to meet the Aiel was great. I've heard such great things about their culture, and I really wanted to see what they were about, because everybody is like, oh, the Aiel are such cool characters and such a cool culture and everything like that, and so I wanted to actually see why people thought that, and so getting to see a little bit more about their culture was really good. While I think there will still be a lot more in following books about them, this book did give a good introduction to who they are and what they can do, so I appreciated that. As I mentioned, there's a lot of things in this book that I really enjoyed. The development of different magic systems and the items is great, and really helps to immerse you in the world a lot more. I don't think I liked it more than book 1, but it is right there, right up there with it. I would say probably book 1, I think I put that as a 5 out of 5 on Goodreads, and Dragon Reborn would probably be like a 4.5 out of 5, something like that, whereas The Great Hunt was maybe a 3.5, and it just, I was bored with it. I liked a lot of things happening in Dragon Reborn, or in The Great Hunt, but it was, for some reason it didn't work for me like book 1 did, and even like book 3 did. It's just a little bit lower than book 1 in my opinion, but not a whole lot, and I will definitely be continuing on with the series. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday. We have our social medias linked in the description down below. We will see you guys again soon. Thanks for watching. Stay warm.